So the guy who drew the sausage.
Yep.
And he had... Yeah, I can tell you're impressed.
Did he do anything else apart from draw a sausage? Is that his claim to fame?
It had a fork stuck in it.
Have you never heard of the Grenfell sausage?
Me?
This is not a trick question. This is not one of Paul's topics, I assure you. This is...
No, I know of the sausage, but is that the only thing he's ever done?
No.
It's a very specific talent set.
He probably just traced it anyway.
Oh no, figures you said it's a specific skill set. I just now have it was like, I know where you are. I have a man with specific skill sets. I will find you, and I will draw a sausage.
I know where your fridge is. I know where you keep the meat. I'm familiar with your cooker.
Liam Neeson meets Bernard Manning.
Transmission is go. Underbase Classic is live.
Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to the Underbase, and welcome to the Underbase Classics. It's been a while, a couple of years. Apologies for that, but it's the sort of thing that just kind of happens. But even though it's so manic at the moment with IDW's release schedule, especially at the end of the month, IDW have given us a break. We've got nothing out this week, so why not dip into the classics? And it's good timing, actually, because if you remember, and we will put links into the notes so that you can see the previous shows, but we were dealing with both the UK and the American issues of the G1 comics. So we went through the original American miniseries, and then we went through The Enemy Within, Man of Iron, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all of the initial UK filler stories, because that's what they were, before the American maxi series really kicked off. So we're at issue number 5. In a nutshell, Marvel US started a Transformers series, Marvel UK reprinted it, there was a discrepancy between the dates and the schedule, Marvel UK was asked to fill out the comic with a little bit extra stuff that they generated in the UK. That's where Simon Furman came to fame, that's where we get the Wreckers, Target 2006, and that's what really has inspired a lot of the IDW UK talent. Okay, all good? Excellent. Right. So, let's introduce my guest. First up, Mr. Joe Teamby. How are we, sir?
Hello, I'm good, yeah. Thanks.
Apologies for not, calling you about these classics sooner. I realize that you've been camped out by your phone for a couple of years.
We'll have to see what happens, won't we? We'll have to check it out. See if I can remember where we got up to.
I can't remember either, but we'll figure it out somewhere. Mr. Tricky, how are you, sir?
I'm damn fine, Adam. How are you?
I'm not bad. I am wondering if we've recorded this already.
It is possible. I don't know. Probably not.
But the bonus with reaching a certain age is senility is an excuse that is easy and readily to hand.
It just means that you're always happy because it's always new.
That's true. They're all dead. I can't believe it.
Are all dead? Question mark.
And speaking of people who are always happy, hello, Mr. Logan Blaze. How are you, sir?
Hello. I thought you were talking about senility, and I thought that's definitely a lead into me.
I wouldn't do that.
Hang on. You're here, Adam.
Yes.
So Joe's here. Trick is an extra. So has Livio done another book ending in Y?
Senility. Transform senility. Coming to a store near you. The continuing adventures of Alpha Trion.
Surely with Livio, it'll be Transformers Beauty, and it's just a reflective surface so he can stare at himself. Lost in his own eyes.
Well, actually, that would be a good series to have out, because we have a lot of, and I'm not generalizing here, folks. I really don't want to, but I think we know that James Roberts and the More Than Meets the Eye team have a lot of female fans.
Peerless Jim, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Olivia has a lot of female fans, he also has an awful lot of male fans because of those eyes.
Oh, those eyes.
Apologies to Olivier's missus, who's probably listening to this.
I'm just fanning myself gently. Have the vapors.
He makes my soul glow.
There's a reason why we're not allowed to do these more than a couple of times a year. Mostly involving lawyers and solicitors. So, folks, we finally made it after a couple of years to Marvel US issue number 5, which was released in June of '85. The UK reprint of it was across issue 22 and 23. And at that point, I think 22 was the 13th to 26th of July. They were very specific back then. But the comic was out every 2 weeks. Hence, you can see why there was a gap between the amount of printed material that they need. The UK version featured the backup strips of Machine Man, Robocapers, Chromobots, Planetary, and Matt the Cat. Issue 22 also featured a little thing called Robot War. A Robot War was a concession to the UK readers because since we'd last seen the American stuff, we'd had things like The Man of Iron, Raiders of the Lost Ark. We'd had these stories with very different looks and feels to it. So instead of just like a story so far in the comic, they also gave us a full-on text page telling us exactly what was going on. And what was going on? Well, the Autobots and Cons fell to Earth millions of years ago, only to be awakened recently. Their battle began in earnest, and the big issue for both sides was fuel. The Cons kidnapped an Autobot's human friend, a mechanic called Sparkplug, and forced him to convert captured human fuel to a Cybertronian variant, something that they could actually deal with. Meanwhile, the Autobots went without it. Prime obviously trying to be noble and not using up any of our resources. But sensing that Prime's troops were on their knees, Megatron attacked. And while the last stand of Autobots gave the Cons a bit of a run for their money, Megatron triumphed. However, Sparkplug had been forced to help the Cons, but what he created was actually a corrosive, poisonous fuel. So right when the Cons had victory in their grasp, they all basically face-planted into the ground. Prime got to his feet, was just about to give a stirring speech about victory, and Shockwave, a Decepticon that had been lost for millions of years, suddenly turns up, makes his entrance, and blasts everybody to Kingdom Come. A New Order was written by Bob Budiansky, art was by Alan Kupperberg, colours by Mr. Yontov, letters by Rick Parker, and editor was Jim Owsley, with Jim Shooter the editor-in-chief. Now guys, we have 2 covers here. Firstly, the main cover for issue 5 and issue 22, probably one of the most iconic TF covers ever. Shockwave feeling chipper after burning the legend "All Are Dead" under the Transformer logo. The art was by Mark Bright. The UK used that for 22, but actually used the Decepticon logo as the head for the comic, which is a really dark spin when you think of it. Issue 23, though, has a darker cover for the UK side. It has Buster Witwicky in the TF version of Resident Evil. And the art is by Robin Smith. Well, look at that again. Seriously dark stuff.
It is,
so I'll start with you, Tricky. For a start, did you read this at the time?
No, I would be 9 at the time of this. I came on at, I think it was issue 45.
Mm-hmm.
So I've only read this in trade, going backwards. This is the iconic cover. I've never read this cover correctly, because the Shockwave one you're supposed to read as "The Transformers Are All Dead."
Yeah.
And I've never read it as such. I've always ignored the headline. I know it's Transformers, and it's like, "Are all dead?" Should there be a question mark? I don't quite understand. Who's the purple dude?
That's the time thing, though. When you look at the American cover, for some reason it doesn't really fit in as much as it should do. I mean, they've got a Prime on the cover, where UK didn't adopt that until later.
No.
They've got the Autobot logo, which kind of confuses because you don't know if it's Transformers are all dead or Autobots are all dead, or, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, it doesn't flow as well as the UK one. And also it's a red logo instead of the UK's purple.
Yeah.
Which just fits.
Yeah, I mean, they did rotate these things a lot back in the day.
Mm.
So you always kind of wondered what you were going to get next.
That's true.
Yeah, I always look forward to kind of getting the cover and kind of studying it. It was the thing you did before you kind of opened up page one. I always enjoyed it.
In the last couple of days, we've had a cover for a new More Than Meets the Eye release, and it's caused so much buzz over the net, and we're a couple of months out, and people are just pontificating wildly on what they think it's going to mean. At the time when this came out, of course, Transformers, it was a different thing. It was a kid's comic.
Yeah.
But you're a kid who's not familiar with Shockwave, bar one panel in one comic, which in the US, there would have been a break between that series finishing and this starting. And if in the UK, you would have had a whole bunch of stories in between.
Yep.
So this is a seriously creepy unknown character. Joe, what do you think to this?
Well, it's a complete classic cover. I mean, when you think of covers from the original Marvel run, it's one of the first that pops into your head. Well, it does in mine anyway.
Yep.
It's the very toy accurate Shockwave there, looking pretty creepy, and it looks like he's in some sort of seedy alleyway as well.
It's an odd position for where he may or may not be. But,
very shadowy.
It does help as well that because they were still doing a lot of toyetic designs, and Shockwave is one of the best looking G1 toys when it comes to actually looking like something that could take you out. You imagine if they'd used this issue with the original toy design of Ratchet.
Yeah, I mean, it almost looks like box art, doesn't it? That Shockwave. But the other cover, the one for 23, I've never seen that before. I've had to quickly Google that just to see what it looks like. I've never seen that before in my life.
It's almost like a hellish kind of cover because the bots are all in red and
again toy accurate as well.
Yeah.
Jazz's massive boot there.
I was going to say this, once we get inside folks as well, there are more colouring and art issues, because these artists are still struggling with the idea of how do you depict a toy that is often compromised in one mode or another in an action comic and still let them kind of emote as much as they want to.
Oh,
so
on that 23 cover, that looks like Soundwave's leg as well. A bit random.
Well, there will be. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say, with the 23, I don't know the names, but isn't it the same artist who did Man of Iron? Because it looks like his style.
Oh, it could be.
So,
and suddenly the
so.
Underbase Classics draws to a halt. Right, let me just try and find.
See if you can find the Skywalk pin-up as well. I'm intrigued by that. Need that.
Now, was that a pin-up or was that a calendar?
It says calendar pin-up. It's August.
I'm sorry, I've just
Skywalk's August.
He's Miss August.
It's the tradition that continues right up to the day, in that a lot of the stuff that's released in UK comics or UK versions of comics, you've got your comic, you've got your story, you've got your quiz, you've got your letters page, you've got your posters, you've got a little bit of everything. And then, of course, nowadays you've got some cheap, weird toy. I mean, I've seen knockoff Transformers on the UK Transformer comic.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is it's stunning.
Yeah, you've got to remember that back in the, well, still now I suppose, you've got to have multiples of 4 for a comic.
Yeah.
So if you get to a point where it's like, we're 2 pages short, stick a pin up in there. Oh, it's January, yeah, do January, that's fine. Hey, we can do this every week.
Robin Smith, who did the art for The Man of Iron, did not do this cover.
Oh, it just seemed very similar style, that was all.
You're right, because that at the time, and this is what I think gave UK issues their unique feel, is the way that they were painted covers.
Because that's what I was going to say about issue 5. You're quite right, it's an iconic cover. Because I think it's one of the few that were painted. I jokingly mentioned Livio as I came in. To be honest, I'd love to ask Livio, did he see this as a child and feel like inspired in any way? Because it has certain elements of his quality. and it is one of my all-time favourites because you don't see that sort of real art, I say real art, but that level of different art until sort of like issue 70 plus in the American issues. The rest of them do come out like as if they've expanded a still from inside one of the issues. Until 70 they are just like panels within blown up. Here you have it's something a little bit different. It's something that might implying what's happening in the show, but it just looks lovely.
It gives a level as well, I think, of like additional quality.
Yes.
So you pick it up and you have to double check it doesn't look like a cheap comic, even though it's in the stands with everything else. This gives it that sort of that luster, that sheen. Looks a little bit more interesting, and it's got a sort of foreboding that, I mean, a modern equivalent of this would be Alex Milne's Tarn cover, where it's basically an unknown robot to the audience, and we're just getting this vibe of threat coming across from him. So this is what people have missed, by the way, with the Underbase Classics. Us spending half an hour of people's time talking about just the cover.
But it's a classic cover.
It is, and this is the thing with it, is that it's been referenced a whole bunch of times. People have actually done homages to it in other media. It's got a power to it. And like you said, Paul, as well, I do wonder why it took them that long to come back to doing more of this. Or just get the artist back. But
that's true.
We'll see. So, right, now I said that we were obviously back with the US series. That we were going on with the US run. That's not entirely true. Because in something which could be taken as very prophetic, the first page of this comic actually differs between the US and the UK version.
Yep.
Now, if you're in the States, the first page will show you a scene from a TV series called The Honeymooners. But it was unknown in the UK. So instead, the first page of the ongoing Transformer comic was redrawn for UK readers. And it showed a scene from the sci-fi classic V. Doesn't really matter though, because both of them,
didn't realise that.
Both of them are part of the same thing. They are part of the world's biggest cathode ray TV setup. The amount of heat was probably visible from space. With the latest in technology showing, and I kid you not folks, 5 different TV channels.
He nicked the setup from David Bowie from Man Who Fell to Earth.
Probably did. And
no, he's stolen Thundercracker's idea.
He's stolen Thundercracker's idea.
Oh my god!
There are so many things in this that you think, oh god, we've only used this again recently.
No, I'm just thinking, I wonder if it's like, you could just do it. Shockwave left it back here, he's not turned it on for a while. Thundercracker goes, he's left a remote down the back of the settee, damn him.
By the way, in the UK at the time, we'd only had 4 channels in the UK for 2 years. So this was actually quite, high tech for us. Seeing someone looking at 5.
Must have recorded one of them. On his Betamax.
Yeah, on his Betamax, yeah. Long live Beta. Yeah, you never heard about the Transformer that turned into the Beta recorder.
He's up there with Signal Answer.
Yes, and Laserdisc guy. But anyway, the channels are currently showing are a sports channel, the aforementioned variant of a show, a nutty game show involving a guy in a rabbit suit with a Mickey Mouse cosplayer behind them. I like to call that show Name That Furry, and a trashy US soap opera, and a news report from an oil rig. So, it's kind of like primitive YouTube, really, with Shockwave sat there, kind of like Matt Clark, wishing he had some Energon-O's.
The thing is, it's not just Mickey Mouse. If you look behind the bum of the contestant, you've also got a mad clown, which I'm pretty sure it's that one off of I do cocaine!
No, it's not Dr. Rodso, that's Spawn to me.
That's the Violator.
That's right. Let's make a deal for your soul. This oil rig happens to be owned by the Rock Lord version of Tony Stark. He is... You liked that one, didn't you? He is flamboyant. He is a multimillionaire. He is an industrialist. He is GB BlackRock. He is Stark crossed with Magnum. That Tash sunk 1,000 teenage dreams, I tell you. The guy who designs an oil rig with a semi-automated defense system, landing strips for planes, tanker, docks, you name it. He's clearly a man with a bit of an inferiority complex. But the reporter allows GB to wax lyrically about the rig and about his star employee, Josie Bella. Josie is a sweetheart, a pretty young lady, a woman who ended up being exploited enough to make even the Bayverse actresses feel like they got off lightly.
Oh God, yes.
We'll wait a few episodes for her tinfoil moments to begin. But after...
She has such anime eyes right now.
She does. And she has brown hair and she looks cute rather than anything else. Remember those innocent days, Josie. After viewing mere moments of 5 channels, Shockwave judges as primitive as a species and strolls off. Of course, if he'd looked at the net nowadays, he would have taken mere moments for him to atom bomb the entire planet.
Unless he likes cats.
Unless he's into Tumblr.
Then he's fine.
It's
Into
the
what?
age of Shockwave.
But also,
If he did, that wall would just simply say no shipping.
it would be full of Starscream. It would just be wall to wall Starscream. or Tumblr's favourite, Rodimus and Magnus.
I'm so glad I'm not on Tumblr.
It's not good. So, Shockwave notes, the conquest of this planet and the enslavement of its people should be a simple task indeed. And he says that last section over the page, and as you turn it, you're hit by this double page spread. Shockwave is walking through a cavernous room. Deactivated Autobots are hanging from the rafters like dead livestock awaiting the butcher's knife. It's as if Whirl was hired to do the interior decoration. And that's not a joke. Actually, what Whirl does at the beginning of More Than Meets the Eye is not too dissimilar from what Shockwave's done here.
Replace these with sweeps and you're pretty much there.
Boom. Now, I know it's art and colour era city here, so it really isn't worth pointing out all of these guys. But I was going to ask, I'll ask you first, Joe. What's the impact when you see a page like this? Because it's a hell of a reveal, you know, and let's not even forget Ironhide's torso rammed on a pole like some sort of wrecker lollipop.
It's brutal, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely brutal.
Does this hold up 30 years later?
I think it does, apart from the artwork, because everyone, apart from a couple, are coloured entirely wrong, and I don't know what that arm is going on the right. That little stripy arm.
Oh.
Whose is that?
Oh yeah.
That's breakdancing jazz.
But yeah, it does still have the impact. You're not expecting to see it. If this were the first time you read this, you wouldn't expect that. And yeah, absolutely brutal.
Tricky, do you think they actually, it hasn't occurred to me until now actually, but do you think they might have gone crazy with the colours here because they were aware that they didn't want a kid who had, I was going to say an Ironhide toy, but you've never recognised the drawing of Ironhide here from the toy. But say a guy that had Hound, who does look mostly like his counterpart, but if you were a kid who had Hound and you open the page and you see him hanging upside down like a slab of beef.
No, I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think you got to remember you're in issue 5. There's a lot of what's the word, scene setting going on in this issue. This is just people working from outdated artwork, basically, or from dodgy reference material. Because you've got to remember, you've got Diaclone stuff, you've got all sorts of things which are just misleading. And, you know, it's one of those things. Whilst we're talking about colours, what's everybody reading here? Because I've got the Titan.
Yeah, I'm reading in that.
If you compare that to the IDW reprint, the colours are way more lustrous, just because of the paper. So if you look at the IDW one, everything's a little bit washed out.
I've got a copy of the IDW version, the collected, and it's not too bad. And I've also got a scan as well, which has definitely a lot more pop to it.
Yeah. Yeah, the IDW books are great. I support them entirely. I want them to finish the run, please. Can we have the UK ones? They're perfectly serviceable, but yeah, the Titan reprints really pop. They really do.
I recommend turning it upside down as well.
Yeah, it really does help.
For different perspective.
The thing is, though, you look at this image, you've got all these... it's nice to know that Shockwave's kosher, because he's obviously letting these people bleed out properly before he butchers them.
Indeed.
But you've also... I mean, if you think back to the kind of... when people were being displaced in time,
Yeah.
you've got the same effect coming off the device in the middle of it. All this black and gold and yellow
Kirby
mess.
particles.
Yeah, it really is. It's a lovely effect. It's like sucking the life out of them.
It feels like it, doesn't it? I mean, this is it. It's one of those. At the moment, Shockwave he states that all of these are simply there as spare parts, and that they are hung there because they're hung there, and that this machine, you never really get much more back off this machine and what its purpose is. But yeah, there could have been all sorts of reasons for them using that thing in there. A Shockwave kind of...
It doesn't seem like a logical thing to do. It seems like it's a total different part of Shockwave's sort of psyche than, just being logical and doing something for a reason. This seems just brutal, doesn't it?
Well, there are things in this comic as well which definitely border on pride and arrogance from Shockwave. Now, whether he hides this behind his enthusiasm for reason and logic, that we can discuss when it pops up. But yeah, this is definitely a brutal thing to do. Then again, remember, a lot of these guys, they weren't injured. I know there's a lot of what we now call energon splashing around there, but a lot of these guys had basically just taken their power and given it to the Last Stand members. They'd gone into the energy transference pods. It looks like all those guys and a few more have been taken out and strung up, so it could be a simple matter of space.
Yeah. But when we get to Mirage, he's miraculously been put back together.
Oh yeah, this is he was miraculously put back together by the end of The Last Stand.
Oh yes, he was.
So
yes.
yeah, it's all very, very weird and wonderful.
Damn Ratchet's good.
Exactly. So Shockwave keeps strolling. He walks past all these Autobots, as striking as they are for us, and he keeps going. And he next passes some Decepticons. It's the Seekers in boy band pose and Ravage, and they are being gradually recovered after being felled by that poisonous oil from Sparkplug. Ravage is already up on his feet though, and in good enough shape to assume his classic Oxard pose.
I'm gonna say that.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. I never noticed that before.
Ravage is still reverting to his classic form. But again, Shockwave doesn't even stop. He's strolling on, because there's one more room. And in that room is Megatron. He's barely back up to functioning level. The leads and cables helping him to recover might as well be chains. And Megs' grumpy mood after his bad fuel hangover is worsened by the shock of Shockwave informing him that he's taking over. It's one of the most civilized coups the Cons have ever had. As Shockwave explains, the Cons forces were all injured due to Megatron's actions. They were all rescued by Shockwave when the Autobots had almost won. Logic, states Shockwave, says, I must assume command of the Decepticons. And he then demands that Megatron give a summary of his previous American miniseries, just in case any humans might be spying on them at this moment. And we do. We get a nice little rundown of what happened in the previous series. They crash to Earth. They have a bit of a Barney. Autobots think they've lost, then they win, then everybody loses, so on and so forth. And Shockwave is like a kind of Alan Rickman Severus Snape. He's coolly putting down Megatron's efforts, and again reminds him, this is why I should be leading. You keep screwing up, especially around power. And just to underline this, he decides to take an innocent, what looks like blue Sunstreaker, and kind of does a farmer with him. Cuts him in half. Now, this pretty much does, folks, for Sunstreaker. This is meant to be Sunstreaker, apparently, because it pretty much does for him. That's it. I think Sunstreaker is injured for most of the rest of the Marvel run. Marvel didn't like cut and dry warriors. Just ask Sideswipe.
Oh.
I know. But of course we know Megs does not play well in games of leadership. It doesn't matter that there is logic behind this. He is already planning to take control back. Guys, very quickly, Tricky, will start with you. Transformers, Heroes, Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
It's been a month or two, you open a comic, and what you're getting is actually the bad guys. You're getting a lot of information and stuff about the bad guys. Now, of course, the good guys have been beaten. Most of them are out for the count. But it's got to be said, it's nice that they're giving you so much time with the bad guys.
Yeah, if you look at the 3-act structure and things like that, you've got to develop your antagonist. You know, you've got to the end of the first arc of this. I mean, you've got to remember, it was only supposed to be 4 issues. So we're kind of resetting at this point. So you've got to the end of the 4 issues, the humans and the Autobots have won through subterfuge until this giant space laser turns up. As you do. So you've got to establish the Decepticons as a threat again. Because otherwise they can be wiped out with a bad batch of fuel.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we've got here. We've got this Decepticon is powerful enough to wipe out the entire Autobot army, depowered as it is. And he's usurping charge, and he's basically a new broom that's sweeping clean. He's taking away, saying, look, you guys are inept, you're completely useless, you need a leader. Hey, I'm a leader. Follow me, guys, we're going to do things. The thing that reads kind of false in the light of what happens after is why would keep Megatron around? You know, from the shockwave of a couple of years later, would just kill him. It would just take him apart. It would use any parts that are usable again, probably take his fusion cannon, and then lead the Decepticons as he sees fit. And if things would have worked out completely differently, because Megatron was completely inept.
The one thing with this shockwave, though, of these couple of years, is that he was very much driven by logic and the need to keep resources. There is a moment in a much later comic, and trust me folks, it's far enough along that there won't be any spoilers, where he turns to Megatron and goes, I'm going to kill you now because you've been incompetent. And Megatron turns around to him and goes, actually I haven't. I've been the one who's correct. And states all of his reasons, and Shockwave, who is in command and is in power and can take Megatron out with a single blow, just hands back leadership and goes, you're right. Your logic is sound. My logic is flawed. You're in charge. I think they are working very, very much off those early tech specs, so logic is making him, in one sense, a very bland character because he is just doing the bland reaction to everything. But at the same time, he's horribly efficient. And that's what, if anything, that's scarier because you're waiting for your bad guy to screw up. You're waiting for your curses, He-Man, I will return again with a completely different plan and not twice the amount of plan I had this time that almost beat you. A competent villain is very, very scary in the 80s.
Sure.
Right. It's time that we went and visited another area of town. Now, if you're in the UK, before this issue came out, there was a bit of a lead. Who was the last Autobot? And reading at the time, I didn't have a clue. Mostly because I'd missed out on some of the early issues, and also because I'd read Man of Iron, blah blah blah, the other issues, so I'd kind of lost focus on who the last Autobot was. I genuinely thought it was Prime, someone who'd escaped from the battle. I had no idea, of course, if I'd read it at the time I would have known, but that one Autobot took himself out of the fight before the last stand. Nearby, at a nearby hospital, a Buster is looking for Ratchet. You see, after a slight misunderstanding caused the Autobots to believe that Buster's dad had willingly betrayed them and given the Decepticons fuel, Jazz tried to stop the human from leaving. Anyone who who's listened to our previous classics, knows that we have a rather dim view of Jazz's interaction with humans. He kidnaps them, he tries to kill them, etc., etc. So he tried to stop this human from leaving with a flamethrower.
Put the gun down, Jazz. Use your words.
flamethrower works better.
Unfortunately, poor old Sparkplug promptly had a heart attack, and it was up to Ratchet then to take him to the nearest medical centre for help. Ratchet was going to charge right back, but as soon as he got there and unloaded his cargo, real ambulance workers, real paramedics, mistook him for the real ambulance and used him to make an emergency call-out. He couldn't exactly let humans down, so that's where he's been. Now, while the surrounding paramedics freak out at the sight of a kid apparently talking to an ambulance, Buster informs Ratchet of his father's health. It's good, thanks for asking, and reveals that Sparkplug's poisoned oil plan apparently worked. Or at least they're sure of it. But by now, the cons should be toast. Unfortunately, Ratchet can't get through to HQ, and you can understand he's a little bit worried. So the two agree to return to the Ark together to find out what's going on, but Buster's going to pop in on the old man again. I should add as well, between this scene and the scene that follows, Buster, Witwicky, has more dialogue with more meaning than Shy had in the entire first TF movie. Just put that into perspective, folks. We're still dealing with Transformers. There's an awful lot of human story in here, and yet the robots are still center stage. It's very nicely balanced. So anyway, Buster goes in and sees his old man, and Sparkplug, having survived Jazz's flamethrower, is surprisingly none too pleased to hear that his son wants to go back to the Ark. He asks, or rather makes Buster promise him he won't have anything more to do with them.
Optimus Prime's a bad influence.
He's a nasty, well, actually he is a nasty influence. He will encourage you to kill yourself for overly dramatic reasons.
And especially stay away from Jazz.
Stay away. Jazz won't stay away from you, he'll just kidnap you, it's fine. But Buster actually cries. He sheds a tear as he agrees with his dad to leave his friends behind. I like to think that tear panel is representative of the standard response nowadays to every single release of More Than Meets the Eye. I promise I won't care about a character in a James Roberts comic again. I promise.
How did he make me care about a scraplet? I don't understand.
Pipes! I'm still can't get over pipes. Back at the Ark, Nurse Shockwave is helping Megatron get better. And he's busy cleaning up the mess left after the last stand. Literally, these guys are moving carcasses around like no one's business, and seem quite chipper doing it. Megatron is about as subtle as Starscream in planning for his return to power. In fact, almost as subtle as the Angry Birds Megatron from the Angry Birds Transformer comic, if you've read that. And obviously he wants to find a new plan of attack for Shockwave. So he starts asking him about where Shockwave's been. Shockwave arrived on Earth millions of years ago, as kind of was shoehorned into the miniseries, but disappeared, and it looks like he was found by a probe just in time for his return to blast everyone to bits. Shockwave isn't telling, so Megatron knows it's got to be something juicy. Whilst this is all going on, the fixed cons are dragging those corpses around, cleaning up and generally being useful. It turns out that these Autobot chassis are going to be used for spare parts. But not Prime. Prime himself has a far, far more important use. Because as Shockwave reveals, it is logical to assume an Autobot of his status contains within him the creation matrix. Dun, dun, dun! Paul?
Yes?
Have you heard of this creation matrix before?
I do not believe we have, not up to this point. Not in this comic.
So is this... I mean, at the moment it's an energy source. At the moment it's still yet to turn into this weird, convoluted, ever-changing thing which, we now call the Matrix, the Spark, the All-Spark, the whatever doobry what's it they want this year. Is it we've got more bad guys being represented here. We've got a greater story. As Tricky says, we've got the threat being built up. Is this the first kind of introduction of something a little bit more mystical?
Not so much mystical, I didn't think. When I first read this back when, I felt it felt, to be honest, I wasn't being cynical or not, but it was a chance to bring in more characters.
Right.
It was you'd always wondered what made Transformers more than just machines. So I didn't know if that was something mystical. I always thought of it as a computer, as it is described here, a computer program and an advanced AI system. I didn't really think of it back then because I was only a kid,
Mm-hmm.
but there's something that made a computer that was advanced enough to give them life, as it were.
I mean, I've got an early version of the comic here, and the original text in this is Megatron reveals the creation matrix is the computer program that allows its processor to construct new Transformer life according to whatever toy releases Hasbro wish to put out. Now that apparently is the official version, but it was a nice little backdoor way for them to quickly go, let's get a few more Transformers out there.
Yeah. But it makes sense story-wise, because, we as kids, we're not stupid, even back then. We realised you couldn't just build a robot, it's something different. There's something extra you required to give them this character. So you thought the idea of a good computer program which gave them the spark of life, for the sake of a better word, it made sense. That I don't think we got the mystical stuff until a lot later. Well, it didn't feel like it was anyway. It sort of, there was a weird thing because of course this leads all into their Combiner Wars later on. When Buster starts having dreams and that felt a little weird, but you could still I never really felt it was mystical.
True. The side effect to this as well is that, it is building up the con forces. And that's one thing that as a kid, I did pick up on quite quickly. Awful lot of Autobots, mini-cons, not many Decepticons. And you kind of wanted more cons because it was looking a bit imbalanced. You couldn't understand why, if you had all the Autobots in one place, they couldn't take on all the Decepticons and beat the snot out of them. And that's why, you had the Last Stand. You had the first battle, which was 5 or 6 Autobots versus pretty much every Decepticon. They hadn't played up this huge difference in power between the two sides, apart from the fact that Megatron had no known weakness and Prime did have a weakness, however small. But yeah, the rest of the forces seemed a bit unbalanced, so I loved the idea that we were going to get more cons. We next move on to, what is basically a precursor to the Ladybird books, because we present the mini-story Traffic Light Adventure with Buster and Ratchet. This might be the closest the Transformer franchise ever came to genuine road safety, folks.
G1 Signal Answer.
Absolutely.
The second reference to Signal Answer tonight.
It's true. Well, since we've got now a traffic light that transforms into a robot, why not, why not have his G1 counterpart mentioned? I should note as well that Michael Bay would have simply blown up this entire Crossroads, and he would have blown them up with explosive-packed Victoria's Secrets models. That's the way to go, folks.
Yes, the explosions they created Victoria's Secret models that you just fractal images of Victoria's Secret models everywhere.
There would be laser lingerie just lancing out everywhere.
Isn't that the new Gem and the Holograms trailer?
We don't have time for the amount of hate that has been raised at that thing. Suffice to say, that's a corner of the 80s that I will leave for Miss Nicole to tackle.
Go for it.
I can hear her crying somewhere in the world still. Anyway, the duo are getting near Mount St. Hilary and the Ark, and it's far too quiet for either of their liking. Of course, the writers here stick it to the audience by having both characters repeat, well, nothing can go wrong as long as Optimus is alive. Which maybe is acknowledging the issue that all Transformer writers are going to have to deal with for, 30 years. Because if you want to create genuine drama, you have to get rid of Optimus. Once you get rid of Optimus out of the way, everything is slightly more unsure. Things are on less steady ground. Nobody can beat Optimus. Nobody, states Buster, as his eyes reduce in size to almost circles. He looks like a hamster. It's quite worrying. But just to be safe, they don't just drive up to the entrance. They sneak a peek from around the corner. And what Buster sees stuns him. I mean, stuns him, ladies and gentlemen. Tricky probably knows what I'm getting at here, because it's not that the Ark has Decepticons outside its entrance. Oh, no, folks, it's far more shocking than that. It's not even that it's implied the Autobots have been defeated. It's not that Sparkplug's plan has apparently failed. Oh, no, no, no. The fact is, there are two sentries in the entrance to the Ark. 2 Decepticons. Rumble and Frenzy, and they are both the same colour. R-I-B-F-I-B, R-I-B-F-I-B, R-I-B-F-I-B. The argument is ended, folks.
Until one of them turns into Soundwave later. On the next page.
I was actually just chuckling at Rumble's butt. It's just like, hey, check out these bands.
But yeah, Blue Rumble, Blue Frenzy. Quit your bitching now, people. I don't care. They're all blue. There we go.
Now you're making me look at his butt. It looks like he tucks.
He squats. I can tell you that. No, of course, I don't know if one of them is just sat or whether the other one has turned into Stiltman from the Marvel Comics.
The other question is, where's his other gun?
Oh yeah. Oh, he's probably holding it.
I hope so.
Yes.
Just polishing it slowly.
Oh, no.
What's the other one?
So
What is the other one holding, by the way?
Stop!
It looks like he's changing his lubricant.
Taking a leak.
Yeah.
Where's Laserbeak?
Oh God. The reason why he's going, is he's come across a porn parody.
Glad you added in something at the end then.
The keys to Soundwave are just in a bowl in that table.
Oh dear.
Welcome back to the Underbase, folks, where quality is... Yep.
Somewhere.
This is why it's Ratchet's first worst fears realised.
It's so bad it's turned Ratchet blue.
Yeah, Ratchet. Now, this is what I mean. When you said earlier, Optimus Prime is a bad influence, this is what I'm talking about. Because Ratchet then goes utterly Optimus Prime. Because he first states, I may be the last Autobot left alive. And then goes to promptly add, and now I must walk into the Decepticon base by myself, find out what's happened, even if I should die in the trying. No, don't get it. If you're the last one, you need to stick around. Even Buster gets this. Unfortunately, Buster has a brain and argues that maybe the human should try instead. It's easier for him to sneak past. Gets past them. In fact, he doesn't really sneak. They can't really see him. A fact which is borne out later on. But Buster manages to get into the base. And we have a very, very small moment here, unintentionally harking back to the Man of Iron. Because we see, for just one panel, the Ark for what it is. A huge, oversized alien base. Feels utterly inhuman to this boy, this teenager. He has no idea what's in there. He doesn't really understand the Cybertronians anyway. It could be a very horrific place. And Buster has no idea what's in store for him. He enters the main cavern, and it's the artwork from earlier. I mean, literally, it is the artwork from earlier. A bit of a cheeky
cut and
boost
paste
there by the artist, with a new sort of floor and some foreground stuff put in. But yeah, it's the art from Shockwave's double-page spread, just not coloured at all. Which, yeah, it does work.
It improves it.
Yeah. Buster, stunned as he is and worried because they all look dead, tries to comfort himself with his usual refrain that Prime isn't there. Obviously, no one can kill Optimus Prime. But no sooner has he uttered that, than he comes across the Autobot leader. It's fair to say he's not in a good state. Prime has been decapitated. A pink hairdryer is currently sucking out his mind, and the head of Optimus Prime can only mutter that Buster is the Autobot's only hope.
Apparently Buster's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
This is the first issue of your ongoing story. This is the first issue where you're meant to pick up the comic and support your heroic Autobots as they beat down the evil Decepticons. And your story from cover to cover is all hail Shockwave.
It's bleak, isn't it?
At least in All Hail Megatron, you know, you had a beaten Autobots, but they were still alive. Here, they're reduced to practically nothing.
I like it.
Is it the best way to start this? Is it a great way? Because it's basically Empire, isn't it? This is the Empire Strikes Back for them. Is this the best way to start the Transformers series?
Well, you do need to know what happens next, don't you?
You're kind of desperate to.
Yeah.
By the way, next up is Megatron versus Shockwave to the death. So yeah, you're going to tune in for the next issue, definitely. But I mean, Joe, overall, looking at it now, does it still have that power? Because we can't really give it grades on a comic that's...
Yeah, I think so. It's a really good setup. And like you say, the Autobots are just absolutely reduced to, well, you do think that they're all dead, apart from Optimus Prime, who's having his Reiki or whatever there. It's
Reiki? Oh, God.
But yeah, it's
pretty bleak.
Yeah, really bleak.
Yeah.
But we did get some good characterization along the way, like Ratchet. I thought he was written really well. And especially the bit with the traffic light, I enjoyed that. And yeah, you just see the Decepticons all powering back up, ready for action, ready to take over the world, really. And the Autobots are just nowhere, well, in a state of disarray or near death.
I mean, Tricky, we've got a situation as well where all the way through we don't actually hear from any of the other cons. It's just Megatron and Shockwave. They trim that down. They could have had moments when, the guards are outside. Oh, what was that? Oh, nothing. They keep it to a minimum. And in fact, it's just, was it 5 characters and the whole story really, and a couple of news reports?
Yeah, pretty much. 6 characters, 7.
And I don't know. One of the most important must be Buster, because he's driving so much of this.
Yeah. There's some real world building going on here, though. Everything in here will power this for at least the next, 2 arcs?
Yeah.
I was going to say, you've got things led down here, which are still being used now.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the genesis of a lot of the underlying storyline, which was still been going through Dreamwave into IDW.
Yeah. This is issue 5. There are characters here that turn up in issue 100.
There are characters here that, their influence is felt all the way through to Regen, and also the Bayverse films will make an awful lot of what happens in the next issue or so between Optimus and Buster. Admittedly, it will then change to Spike, but it will, this has a lot of consequences. But it's just such a lovely dark way to, get people involved.
Oh yeah, and it's lovely that Buster's confident enough to wear a pink shirt. That's lovely.
I think he always did.
And it's his only shirt that he ever owned.
Well, remember as well, there's a couple of important things. Firstly, that he's got Jesse. Yeah. So he doesn't need to matter about wearing anything he wants. And his only competition is O. Now, I don't know if people even remember
cosplay.
I think he's been booted. No, next issue is O's last appearance.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
O's last stand.
Now, we've recorded that one already, folks. That was recorded way back when with Amy and Andrew Griffith. It was just the two of them doing it for Warrior School. So I might record it again just so that we got some continuity. I'll ask Mr. Griffith if he's okay with that. But, because we need to celebrate O's last appearance. So, guys, do you have any other thoughts on this comic before we wrap it up?
Shockwave's got an awkward transformation.
Looks painted.
Very
He's got to spin his left leg right the way around.
For me, this is the issue that really grabbed me.
Yeah.
I loved the first few American issues that are in the UK edition, and to be brutally honest, even at the time, I didn't really feel the Enemy Within, Raiders of the Lost Ark, they felt at the time they didn't have the bite, the weight of some of the first issues.
Yeah.
And then you get this one, and to be honest, when I think back of my original Transformer issues, the image of disembodied Optimus Prime's head and the hanging meat Autobots is the thing I always remember from the G1 run, the first comics I had. So you had the cover as reissued in, and then this. This is what I think cemented my love for Transformers, this issue.
Yeah.
In regards to the comic form, I'd already loved the toys and the cartoon, but I hadn't really got into the comic until this issue.
Is it because it gave you the faith that they could go this dark?
Possibly. It just felt there was more at play here. Probably young and jaded Logan was already seen too much, but this was something a little bit different. Like you say, it's the empire, their empire. It's like everything's been lost, and they've only got one way to go.
Yeah, and you're looking here at a powerless Optimus Prime, and remember, folks, we're kind of so used to maybe beating on Optimus because he is this safe character, he is this safe figure, and yes, in issue 2 we saw them laid low by the loss of power. In issue 4 we saw him get beaten by Megatron, but then somehow win, then get, smacked down by Shockwave's arrival. But here he looks helpless. That's different to being beaten in a fight. Here he's just a victim. And that's really unnerving.
Yeah. And
you've got the toy and you're used to, the cab and everything, but you've now just got this head and he just looks useless. I did wonder as well when I was young is if the scene with all the slabs made people feel better if they damaged their toys. If you broke off an arm now, it wasn't just an action figure, it was an action figure hanging on Shockwave's ceiling.
G1 accurate. Return to it, just remind me, you kept saying about the hanging ones possibly being different colours so you didn't feel bad. I was actually thinking more, if you look at it, I think it's more along the lines so you could actually tell when one ends and the other one begins. Because if you think about the Autobots back then, they were very samey coloured. Particularly when they're next to each other. So if you're trying to colour them together, I think they probably just wanted to make sure that a red one wasn't laying over a red one, a blue one wasn't laying over a blue one, so you could actually tell the difference between them.
That could work.
Yeah, but they miscolour Windcharger as Brawn when he's in front of when he's behind.
Yeah. I didn't say it was perfect. It was just something I was thinking that if they coloured everybody the right colours the way they were, a lot of them would bleed into each other.
Nah, Nelson was just a massive Gears fan and thought everyone to do that.
He was, yeah. He was also, I think he was famous, let's face it, for his group coloration. And you get the feeling that he would have coloured the whole lot in blue if he could have got away with it.
I like as well on that double pager how it looks like someone's just flicked ink all over it.
Yeah.
Sort of splattered them all with ink.
Yeah, it's really dark. I think they would over the next 20, 30 issues they would actually move away from this, depicting them too dark and grimy. Even though it's a comic book form, it would take until
Can't watch them do.
Thinking that in terms of the US comics, it will waver. UK wise, it gets really nasty as soon as we jump back to the UK issues.
Yeah, Guardian.
Oh, I cannot wait for that one. But we're going to start waxing lyrically about UK stuff, so I'm going to leave it there.
Well, I think there is one thing to mention here. We did touch upon it, but what we're seeing here, it feels like you're watching a man groping around in a dark room and then finding a diamond. Because the creation matrix, as described here, is something and nothing. But what it becomes is so fundamental to Transformers that there's no way on earth they conceived it as what it became. No chance in hell. But it's such a beautifully simple, complex idea that other people have taken it and made it what it is now. And it's literally the essence and the soul of not just Transformer, but the entire franchise. I absolutely love it.
I don't know when it came to the film exactly, how they developed the Matrix, because by the time the movie came out, there are a whole ton of different iterations of what this thing is. I like to think it is the first element of some sort of unknown, some kind of slightly wobbly science that they can use to get away with a lot of stuff. And you're going to see over the next 100 or so issues, you're going to see the Matrix Flame, the Matrix Spark, talking about a spark, and then that will slowly evolve into, what is the core of a sentient being. And yeah, it's a great idea. And I imagine it started out as one thing, and then other writers went, "Oh, you've done that. Oh, you must be heading towards this end." And the writer's gone, "Well, no, I haven't, but now you mentioned it, maybe."
Yeah.
It's a brilliant idea. It's just, it must have been heartbreaking to see these characters in this situation if you owned the toys, and wishing that you could get hold of a Shockwave, which in the UK, yes, forget it. So
yeah,
you can only get Maplin. You get the radio
Maplin.
foil.
Shockwave.
The Astro
Shockwave.
Magnum. Or whatever.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, Shockwave.
Oh, by the way, for you guys at home, if you need to get rid of a spare Shockwave model, give me a shout. I currently have one Shockwave and 2 different colour Shockwaves. I'm always eager for more. So
Can't get enough Shockwaves or Shockwaves.
Yeah, right, now folks, just before I zip off, just to let everybody know that the Underbase is now on YouTube. We've set this thing up. It's very, very recent. I have put it together. I've sort of banged a few buttons and hoped for the best. We're going to be putting up a few of our shows. This will obviously be, if you're listening to this on YouTube, hello. But this will be one of the shows that we put up there, and we'll keep putting our new shows up on there as well, just because we know that some people like listening to YouTube when they do their regular work, and it's easier for them to do than log into a podcast player. One thing I'm going to ask is people jump on there, sign up, subscribe if you're interested, and then let me know if you want us to put any of the older issues up, any of the older shows up. We can do that, and if we get a sufficient amount of people asking for one show or one series, we'll start backloading everything up. But because we have so many hundred shows at the Underbase, you can imagine it would be a bit of an effort to start putting everything up there. So
I think everyone will be crying out for Desert of Danger.
Oh,
they'll be wanting that.
Yes, and you're going to have to put the images of Desert of Danger as we go through.
No, I can't do that. I can't. Life is too short, Paul.
No, I think you need to start with Mikey's reviewing Chaos.
Actually, it'll be Mikey's Heart of Darkness.
With just an image of him
crying in a corner.
Yeah.
We are going to stick up Angry Birds because that's a fun little series that is inoffensive and people would hopefully enjoy. Myself and Nicole laughing hysterically whilst Nicole plays computer games whilst trying to do a podcast. And yeah, we'll go from there. But anyway, gents, thank you so much for joining me on this return to the classics.
Pleasure.
The people listening at home, apologies. You waited 3 years and we've still not got any more sensible.
How long is it going to be till the next one?
12 years, 3 months and 2 days.
I'll actually be a grandfather by then.
I feel like a grandfather now. But yeah, if you guys, would you mind coming back for the next one?
That'd be awesome.
I will do these whenever you want.
I mean, I know it's like Halley's Comet with our kind of schedule, but we'll see what we can do, yeah.
I'm always here talking about the G1 comics, so yeah, either talk to you or talk to my cats.
I'm glad that we've been prioritised.
Well, my cats are racist, so.
Oh, that's true. So, on that helpful, constructive, community-based note, thanks, gents. Thanks to you at home, and hopefully you'll hear from us soon on the next edition of the Underbase. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Come on, Tricky. Say goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Underbase Classic complete. Cease transmission.
You're the Matt Tracker of Underbase.
I'm the victim of the Underbase. I think that's the best way to put it.
He does live with a small boy and a robot.
It'd be, like that crappy tattooed picture of the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just got like Underbase tattooed on my forehead. Serial podcaster. Like when I pay for something in the shop and she hands me back the change, I instinctively go, "Oh, great! And what do you think about that development?"
So what about the art on this £20 note?
Ah, Mr. Security Man, did you see that plot twist coming?
You thought I was going to buy Jaffa cakes.
And at the last minute, I went for polos.
Do you walk outside and just think, oh, what a lovely double-page spread?
The colours are so vibrant.
Well, obviously, my response to that, being a cheap wonder, would be everything was better back in the 80s.